Rappin' with ReefBum is sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine.
Yeah, I'll wait for you.
Hey, what's happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Rappin' with ReefBum. I'm your host, Keith Berkelhamer. So today, I welcome back Adam Derickson from Battlecorals. What's happening there, Adam?
Not much, man. Good to see you. Third time's a charm, I guess we'll call it on this one.
Third time on, man. I'm very psyched.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I love coming on. It's great. I had a little bit of a rough patch. I was a little sick earlier today, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but here we are, and I'm going to do my best. I'm actually feeling better. I won't drag on, I promise, but I'm doing good, man. It's always good to talk to you.
We're very thankful that you're rallying tonight to be on, but I do want to manage expectations out there. I think this is going to be about a 45-minute show because Adam was like in bed all day long. He was emailing me from bed. And I was like, "Oh, dude, if you're like in bed sick, then you shouldn't be on tonight." But he is going to rally. But before we start talking to Adam, I want to thank the sponsors of the live stream, both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine. I really appreciate these companies supporting the show, and I also appreciate you folks out there tuning in and watching. Please spread the word. Hit that like button so people can find the show right now. And as always, I always encourage everybody to ask questions and put your comments in the chat. Just quickly, for those that don't know Adam, I'm sure there's not a lot of people that don't know Adam. He has, he's probably one of the most well-known coral vendors out there that specializes in SPS. He has been in the game for a number of years, has done an amazing job aquaculturing corals and making them available to hobbyists. So we're very fortunate to have him back on the show. And I see there's a whole bunch of people in the chat, in the live stream. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. Just quickly checking some of the comments there. Rob, upstate New York, what's up there, man? Good to see you back. Ham Corals, what's up, y'all? Elvis just gave me 3 free frags. Triggerfish 45. So all right, man. We have some limited time tonight, and I think we had some pretty good conversation right before the live stream where we're talking a lot about a certain topic. And my kickoff question to you was, Adam, have you been kind of working on anything lately over the past year? And I think it's going to be an interesting answer and conversation that we'll have regarding what you've been working on in terms of kind of experimenting with stuff. So, yeah.
Right, you are. And hey, thanks for having me on again. Truly, thanks. I really appreciate coming on. But yeah, to answer your question, I kind of decided to start officially chasing pH, as they say. And, there's been it's kind of been a hot subject, I think, in the last couple of years. And, I had been I've kind of been a reactor guy, since day one. And, kind of noticed, I can kind of make it a little bit shorter. At night, my pH would get really low, sometimes in the high 7.6s, and I think I was actually experiencing issues. Corals not really responding well to that. It's waking up in frags, being RTN'd even, things like that. And it kind of lit the fire under my belly to try to correct it. And, since I started doing that, I have been almost exhaustively working with different methods and different techniques to try to more so flatten the curve rather than just to get it high. And in doing so, I have implemented Kalk wasser. I've been running that at night, and I still run a calcium reactor during the day. Not very shortly, almost just to keep it from getting too high, just to add a little bit of CO2 and supplement during the day. I also I've got an outside airline. I'm kind of doing that. And I'm thinking, actually, there was quite a few things I did. I also took a chunk in an area in my sump, and I made it on an opposite light little refugium. I threw some live rock in there and a little LED over that. And just recently, I'm actually running a CO2 scrubber at night too on this little electric solenoid that opens it at night and closes it during the day. So, as you would imagine, I've been I'm kind of in a constant state of like messing with things anyway. That's usually how it goes, and there's really no like happy, we're always messing.
There's always
stuff,
something.
So, whatever you think, but. Right, there's always something, but to that end, I have managed to get my pH at about 8.0 to 8.2 during the day. And we were talking earlier, as you know, Keith was telling me that his pH is about 8.5 and bottoms out about 8.2, which to me is like a miracle. I'm not even sure how that's possible, but I believe him because I've seen the pictures of his tank, and his corals are growing like crazy. But
well, dude,
ultimately,
you
I mean, I think Kalkwasser is an incredibly effective means to supplement, though. I mean, I kind of didn't. I mean, it'd been a long time that I didn't want to mess with it because it's kind of high maintenance and kind of messy, you know. And I've kind of gotten a little bit better at keeping it easy and clean and that sort of thing. But
yeah, dude. I mean,
you know, pH, I guess it's one of those things.
You turned me on also to an air exchange unit. It was either the first time you were on or the second time you were on. It might have been the first time you were on, like 3 years ago. Where
I was all
you basically said that you had just installed I think it was an industrial commercial grade air exchange unit in your in the space where you have your tanks. So yeah, you sent me the link, and I went and I had it installed, and I personally saw like an increase of 0.2 pH points, which was big. You know, that's big because pH is a logarithmic measurement, and 0.2 was huge. But I did the same thing, you know. I followed your lead on that, and you know, then I was doing Kalkwasser, the Chris Meckley method in terms of Kalkwasser, and
cool,
seeing the light for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive, and I mean, you know, I'm sure anyone watching this has seen Keith's tank and seen these giant colonies that he have. That's a pretty good testament to, you know, elevated pH obviously having a better effect. Or, you know, at least, you know, a good effect, you know, as opposed to lower pH and slower growth and that sort of thing. But it's all about the balance, I suppose, is what it comes down to. But I am convinced that higher pH is a good thing as far as SPS
goes.
Can
you tell us a little bit about your Kalkwasser setup?
Yeah, well, we were talking a little bit about it. This is, I wish I had a link or something. Maybe I could post it. My supplier, a guy named Tony, a good friend of mine, has had in his shop it was a wine fermenter vat, and it was shaped like a cone, like an upside down cone. And you know, kind of what I was talking about earlier, how one of the reasons why I was not a big fan of Kalkwasser in the past was how messy it was and how to clean them and that sort of thing, made it just way more of a hassle than just a reactor. You just kind of let it run and everything works. But with this vat, it's basically just it hangs on the wall, and a little valve opens it up, and then you can drain the leftover powder or whatever. But one thing, I guess we were kind of talking how you fill up your tank and then don't add, like, you actually don't add any water to that until it's time to like recharge.
Yeah, pretty much. I have two 30-gallon drums, and so I'll put I think a little over 2 cups of Kalkwasser in the bottom of the drum, and then I'll fill it up with it's 28 gallons of RODI water. I don't go all the way to the top of the drum. And then about 2 weeks later, it's pretty much all, you know, I draw with a GHL doser, so I'm dosing it. I'm pulling it with the 2 dosing heads, which is not the ideal way to do it, because the GHL doser that I'm using is not meant for that kind of volume. I mean, I'm dosing a crazy amount, and I'm waiting for their new maxi doser. I can't remember the name of the new doser off the top of my head, but it's a doser that can handle, like, you know, a lot more volume. It's a doser that you could actually use to do automatic water changes, that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm using the GHL doser, a couple dosing heads, but yeah, you know, so then after a couple of weeks, I'll pretty much add, you know, another couple of cups of Kalkwasser, fill it up with the RODI water again, and it's good to go. And then every 2 months, I'll take a shop vac and I'll vacuum out the sludge, just because, you know, if you don't, then potentially there's a possibility you could have some impurities going into your system. So yeah, that tank that you're talking about sounds very appealing to me in terms of not having to worry about the shop vac.
It is only 7 gallons, though. I just kind of reheard you, and you said your tanks are actually 30 gallons. That is what you run. So it's a little different system. Mine runs where it's constantly dripping fresh water into it. So it's not this stable saturated mixture until it's done. But it has been effective, and I guess mine stirs once every morning, you know, after it's done running. But I might try that. I mean, it's 7 gallons, so you're going to have to refill it, but it's much easier to refill, though, with a little valve on the bottom. So it costs about $60, and like, it's a little fermenting thing for wine or something like that, a little wall-mounted thing. But 7 gallons only. Although you could get 2, and you got 14 gallons at least.
Yeah, there you go. Just line them up.
Yeah, I kind of did. I kind of do.
So what, in terms of the CO2 scrubber, how often do you have to change the media in that thing?
Good question. I'm kind of getting ready to be done with that. I have to admit, and like I said, I mean, it kind of adds up, and I will say, without it, I do get like 7, 9. I mean, I'll dip below 8, if I don't have it, when that runs out. But I'm kind of torn. I was talking to a guy on Instagram who he had mentioned that he did run a CO2 scrubber, and in the past, and he got like a pond air pump. I mean, I can't remember what it was called.
Okay.
I wish I had the name. Like for like a pond, like like a massive amount of air, like an air pump, and a bunch of these like larger air stones. And he said that once he got that on the system, he didn't run. He was able to not do the CO2 scrubbing anymore. Like that effectively, did as well as the CO2 scrubber at the time. But I was looking into those pumps actually. But as of now, I buy like 10 bags at a time. Like the big sliver bags from BRS.
Yeah.
And seem like they last a while, but it's kind of a hassle. I mean, and mind you, I have it running only at night. I have a little solenoid that shuts it off during the day, but it seems like it exhausts pretty fast, I will say. And I'm actually running outside. It's outside air coming into it too. So I got this little contraption I made that goes out the wall, sucking in outside air, and it still exhausts it pretty quick. So I don't know if I just have maybe dirty air here or something, but. And to answer your question, too fast. It goes. I go through it too fast. Yeah, it's getting a little old, I will say.
Yeah, I've never tried a CO2 scrubber. I've used.
I don't think you need one.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the other thing I'm doing is also dripping my calcium reactor effluent into the skimmer pump intake.
Yeah, right. That's a good call.
And I know you have to be careful with that because of calcium deposits. You don't want to seize up your pump because of that. Yeah. But it hasn't been an issue. I try to stick on my maintenance in terms of cleaning my pumps every 3 months. And I mean, you know it as well as anybody in terms of like trying to keep up with that maintenance, whatever it is. It's just so important to be proactive with that stuff.
Right. No, that is true. That is true. Kind of ongoing, really.
Just
like I have a ton of in my main raceway, I have 6 big tanks, and there's 4 gyres in each of those tanks, and it takes me all weekend to clean all the gyres.
Oh man, I'm not a big fan of the.
Just a big. It's like I have.
I'm not a big fan of the gyres because the cleaning part of it. That's
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt.
It is, and what's happened to me, I've had a few of them where I've cleaned them. And I swear to God, I put them back together the way they were put, together by the manufacturer, and they just don't work because there's one part that's binding that I, did not put in.
Yeah, they're definitely quirky, and I will say the reason I like them. I mean, I haven't found a better alternative for shallow tanks. I mean, it's almost like it is the perfect means for flow in a shallow tank because anything round or like an old Tunzi or something. You're just blasting the corals. It's the only thing that really gets the flow on the top, and there's just not much room between the top of the coral and the top of the water. But I have this regimen. I got this little Ryobi pressure washer.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, what did you get? Washer. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's actually pretty sweet. So I'll take all the cages out, and I'll put them in vinegar for the day, and then I'll spend an hour, just with the hose and thing blasting all the crap off. And I mean, like I said, it's a whole weekend affair because I got so many of them. But like I'm getting better at. I mean, so I'm getting more efficient at it, compared to the good old days where I'd soak them and have to scrub them and brush and that sort of thing. But they are quirky, and I guess I've kind of maybe learned the learning curve on how to get them to work.
Yeah.
But until something better comes along for shallow tanks, I don't think I'd use anything else at this point, just because otherwise you're just blasting the coral. Like you don't get that above the. It's like the perfect line above the coral.
I've also found them great to use underneath a frag rack because you could put them right down on the bottom and blast the detritus underneath the frag rack, and there's nothing else I can do.
In fact, that's another subject. I had a post just this week about on Reef to Reef about detritus and what the heck was it? What were we talking about? Someone mentioned you about. Yeah, it was about detritus and just kind of like because that was another thing, getting back to your first question, another thing I've kind of like waged war on is detritus. And for whatever reason, I've tried, super wet skimming and the list kind of goes on, filter socks and filter felt and yada yada, all these sorts of in-tank filter things. And someone mentioned that, and basically the gist of the post was like, do I even need to do this at all? This is something that talk some sense into me, like, am I wasting my time? And someone said, well, Keith and Mike Paletta both pretty extensive mechanical filter people, users. And I said, okay, well, I'll talk to him about that. Just so happens I'm going to go on a show this week. And so here we are. But I mean, maybe you can tell me a little bit about like what you do for detritus, actually, because I'm super curious.
So when I had Mike on one time, he was talking about, he basically takes a power head and periodically blows the detritus off the rocks, in his big reef tank to dislodge it, to try to get it into the water column so the mechanical filtration can capture it. But, so I'll do that sometimes.
And he's using like just filter socks or something? I mean,
yeah, I believe he is using filter socks. So he's just kind of allowing the filter socks to catch the detritus that's in the water column. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten to the point now where I'm also like in my bare bottom tank, the Peninsula tank, there's like, I've got like a ton of flow in that tank. So I've got, it's a 225 gallon tank. I've got 4 MP40s and 2 MP60s in that tank, bare bottom. So it's just really, it's like a nice little washing machine in there. But at the viewing end of the tank, the viewing panel end of the tank, that's the only place it seems like where I'm getting detritus that settles. And so every other day I just siphon that out.
Okay, so you are actively, aggressively,
and every week, and I'll do the same thing in a couple other frag tanks. If I see some spots where the detritus is settling, I'll siphon it out. When I do water changes every week, I'll siphon out the detritus in the sumps. So I same with me.
And what do you use for what do you actually use for mechanical? Just socks?
I've got
those ribbon filter. What are they called? Like the what are they called? Like the filter rollers?
No, I've never tried the filter rollers, but I've got nylon filter socks. I've got the Royal Exclusiv Dreamboxes, and so they come with 10 nylon filter socks per in different micron sizes. So
what was I going to say? Oh, how do you clean them? Like, what do you use to
garden
clean
hose? Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I use my little Ryobi. That another thing you might consider.
Yeah, you got to send me a link to that too, dude, because that looks really neat.
It is great. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I won't turn this into a Ryobi commercial, but I got a smaller one like a year ago, and it was like 300 psi. And it was kind of crappy, and there was some things about it that just weren't all that great. And that finally broke. No huge surprise. So I got they have a newer one. They kind of improved it. And a lot of the things that sucked about the older one are gone now. For example, it's 600 psi, which is pretty good. I mean, I don't really need anything stronger for kind of my little things that I need upstairs. And you can it had like the older one had this big rod, between the nozzle and the thing, and got rid of that. So it's like this little stubby little gun thing. Anyway, it was like $130. Not a bad, and it runs on the 18-volt batteries or whatever. But,
send me the link, and I'll post it in the comments after the live stream.
I will. I made a little video.
Oh, yeah, that's why I saw
it. I made a funny little. Oh, that's another thing. I guess someone about a year ago was like, "You need to like expand your Instagram presence. You're like falling. You're back in the dust. You're way behind." So I've decided to build up my following, whatever you want to call it, a little bit more. I'm a little more active, almost probably more on there now than on Reef to Reef even. But it all comes down to like how busy I am and how much time I have to devote to that kind of stuff. But I will say, like, my Instagram presence has certainly blossomed.
I've definitely
this year to an extent. I mean, someone just said you got to work on that because like everyone else, that's kind of the way things are. I mean, that's the world we are in right now.
I am enjoying your increased presence because I every time you're posting, I'm catching I'm catching the alerts there in terms of it's coming up to my feed there. So cool. Obviously we're connected somehow there, dude. Okay. But what about
right, and I do see yours too. That's where I've been seeing.
What about Battle Vision on YouTube? What happened to that?
That was a project. Yeah, I don't know. Again, like just not enough hours in the day kind of thing. But I said, when my kids got, I don't know, this is like probably 4 or 5 years ago now. I said, like maybe this would be something you guys could like do for me. Like you could maybe take the reins, and I mean it'd be great. I was all for it, and here we are 4 or 5 years later, and it hasn't really blossomed like I was hoping. But I mean, I started off kind of strong, and I was doing the Deltec thing back then, so I had a lot of stuff like that going on. But it obviously, I don't think I've had posted a video on there since like 5 years.
It takes a lot of time.
But here's here's the thing, and I'm aware of that. I had every intention, like when you make these little reels for Instagram, you have to shoot them in the long view. I mean, like it's the I don't know the aspect ratio, the long view. And if you try to post those, if you try to like ping pong them to
Yeah.
YouTube, they just look terrible. So rather than have to kind of create two different videos, like I kind of just took the lazy man's route and just pinged them onto
Yeah.
Instagram rather than try
Yeah.
to be more, have more content. And
So we got,
so
all right, let's try to incorporate some comments and questions from the viewers since we only got you to a quarter
Sure.
of. Mike H. Rats Reef, I siphon my detritus out of the tank and into a filter sock holder in the sump every few days. That's a cool idea. It gets the job done and I don't have to shut off any pumps.
And it recycles the water then?
Sounds
like
like
it just goes
it.
to the sock? Yeah, that's a good call. Well, I guess my question, not even to cut you off, I mean, the big question that I posed in that thread was, is it necessary? Like, can I just let it collect? Because I've got about 2 inches of like muck in that little refugium area now that I was telling you about. And I do run actually a gyre upside down in the main part of my sump. So there's some flow there. But I mean, the real question was, do we need to get it out of there in the first place? Is it a problem that needs to be addressed? And I guess there wasn't a definitive answer.
I personally think it does help, especially in a system where like a frag tank or something where, things can just really, I think algae can proliferate on frag racks and stuff.
Right. Well, on rocks and stuff. For
I don't know. I just kind of find it.
Racks, right.
I think it is beneficial. I think it does help kind of control nitrates and phosphates.
Well, I mean, it feels like it would be. It's like when you see what comes out of it, like when you see like you're physically removing this crap from the water, and like that's kind of. I think that's why I just went at it so fiercely, because I had this little rack. Like I didn't have like an actual like roller filter. I just had like a piece of egg crate that was kind of over an overflow part in my sump that it flows over. So kind of a poor man's filter floss kind of thing. And I mean, it gets dirty, and it got dirty and got dirty, and I kind of kept waiting for it to kind of like not get so dirty so fast. Like I would kind of waiting for it to kind of catch up with it. Like at what point would I be, like water not be so dirty? And like after a year, I didn't. I never got
so what are you
so,
currently running your nitrates and phosphates at?
I don't really. I have no idea.
You haven't tested in a while, huh?
I have no idea. I know that I have the ultra low phosphorus, the little green egg, and I did test this week, and I think it was 29 or like 30 on the ultra low phosphorus, not phosphate. Pretty dense about that, but nitrate. Actually, I do have a backup system that has very little fish, and I have been dosing a Brite well, kind of a commercial, it's like a 5-time strength nitrate solution or something like that. And I did. Yep. I will say I saw corals go from pale and not happy to like considerably more vibrant. Actually, people that got corals from that tank first, the first thing they'd say like, "Man, these are some light looking coral, man. I don't know." And it's like, well, they're healthy. I promise. It didn't happen in shipping. It was like, there's no fish in this tank, and yada yada yada. And that's kind of gone. I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah,
it's like that went away. We solved that problem. But I mean, I did watch, an extremely low nutrient tank considerably improve after I added nitrate, but that's because there's no fish. My main system, I have a lot of rabbit fish, a lot of big eaters, and that sort of thing. And I don't know. The last time I checked it with just a little salifert, it was like clear.
I mean, there
really?
wasn't much nothing.
Wasn't much pink to it, I guess. And I haven't been dosing in that tank just because of all the fish. But that's one of those things. I mean, I've kind of been all around the block on like it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I'm sure that some is better than bottoming out for sure, though. I mean, like you definitely want some in there, some measurable amount for sure.
So we had a question earlier about coloration and what you just talked about in terms of dosing nitrates, in terms of helping colors. I'm just looking for the question. Let's see here. It was that'll all come to it. About. All right, yeah, Salty Dad, what do you think helps out the most with bringing out the best coral colors? My rose vine looks okay, but I know it can look better. Should I move to a higher par or more flow, etc.? So besides, dosing nitrates, Adam, what do you think is a key in terms of getting the most colors out of your corals?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely old school when it comes to this sort of thing. And I know that even in the last, like, maybe 5 years, there's liquids and things, and especially amino acids and that sort of stuff that more than likely would even benefit my system for sure. And I haven't really dabbled with that much, but it's kind of the same old, like stability, you want to keep elk, and I think even more so now, elk and pH relatively stable, and kind of like the classic high flow and high light. Nothing out of the ordinary there. But I do think, back in the good old days, like everyone was shooting to have no phosphate and low phosphate, low phosphate, and I think that was doing a lot more detriment than we realized until we kind of observed that whatever was happening, like our filters were better, whatever, like we were removing it too much, or maybe too much GFO, whatever the case. And as far as coloration goes, it seems like stability really is the king. I mean, like things, even like a temperature swing, could do it. But I'd say stable parameters are probably at the top of the list. I mean, for keeping color vibrant, I guess for bringing the most out of it. I always think highlight really seems to be the key too. I mean, I've kind of always been in the highlight camp, and but that's kind of, I guess that's a thin line to walk too, because if you are going to be in the lower end of nutrients, it's like threading a needle, really, I guess, when it comes down to it.
So you talked about lighting. Are you still using pretty much all the different types of lights?
I do. I still have, in my possession, the last 12 Iwasaki 65Ks. I run 4 at a time, over my halide tank, and I've actually got some LEDs on the side now just to kind of fill in some spots. But I've been pushing them. I get about, I think these last ones I had them in for 3 years before I changed them.
Oh, really?
And on M80 ballast even. So I know that honestly they ran fine. Yeah, I mean, I think I pushed them about 3 years. So having said that, I've probably got another 6 years, another 6 years of like decent halide with those bulbs if I really want to do it. And I probably will at this point. I mean, I may not push them that far, but I mean, I think I've considered that when I'm done with those bulbs, I think that would be the time. But I'm not sure. I mean, even in another 3 or 4 years, like LEDs will probably be even that much better and have something more going for them. But I think that will be the time where I'll pull them down and replace them with something, because it's 4 reflectors on lumen brights. And whatever I can kind of plug in place of those, it'll be the time. I don't think I'm going to go to T5s though. I think that ship has kind of sailed. Although
you're not using
my backup.
You're not using T5s anymore.
No, my backup is all T5 except it's 3 smaller tanks that are all T5, and then 1 frag tank that's all LED. But no, I think at the end of the day, people ask me like, what do you really think is the best? Like, what do you think really is the most effective? And when you compare, I mean, I always thought T5 do something that like halides and LEDs don't. I mean, there's something that happens, I think, with the coverage, something about it. Like otherwise, a lot of the corals look pretty much similar between halide and LED, but the T5 corals definitely have something that the other ones don't, for what it's worth. But having said that, I don't think I'll replace the halides with T5 too, because that's just kind of doing a lateral change, as opposed to an upgrade essentially. But I don't think I'm going to buy any more halide bulbs after I'm done with these last 12.
So if you were like giving somebody advice in terms of getting the most out of their SPS in terms of colors and growth, what would your advice be in terms of lighting? So we obviously halides, sounds like you're kind of like gonna be phasing that stuff out. But if you had to give somebody advice, and it doesn't matter in terms of heat or electricity bills or all that sort of thing, what would your advice be? Would it be like one particular light type, or a combination?
Well, I mean, I think we're pretty much there for LEDs. I mean, there's nothing an LED can't do that a halide can do at this point. I mean, I'm pretty convinced. I know there's still some heated arguments about that sort of stuff, but I mean, I don't need a whole lot more convincing that LEDs are certainly effective. And I know I just kind of rambled on about T5s and how they have something better maybe happens, but at the end of the day, I think as the technology even improves, there's really no reason not. I mean, there's just no reason not to use LEDs, I would say. I mean, it's almost kind of a shtick at this point that I have the 3 choices and that sort of thing, but I couldn't see like taking a step back and adding more T5s to the system, like, that sort of thing, or, certainly not adding more halides, but it seems like with any commercial, even DIYs, but any like reasonable commercial LED fixture, you can't go wrong with these days.
I'm certainly convinced, because we were talking before the show, and I've talked a lot about this on the live stream, that I was a big metal halide T5 guy for years and years and years. I was one of the guys that just did not want to lose get rid of my halides. But yeah, making the transition to LEDs has certainly been eye-opening. And yeah, I think that obviously there's been a lot of folks out there that have had a lot of success using LEDs, and it's certainly a viable, very viable, alternative. That's not news. That's not news in the hobby. A lot of people, know that. And
right, like we're there. I mean, like 10 years ago, it was kind of like, will they, won't they? But I mean, like we've crossed that threshold years ago. It's like, I mean, most people wouldn't even consider using anything else at this point. I mean, they wouldn't even be on their radar to use a halide bulb. If you can even find it. I mean, if you could even find it, but it's just kind of become the completely the norm. And I'm convinced like the technology is improving as well. You know what I mean? Like I said, if I get 12 years out of my halides, I guess we'll see. But in another 12 years, some of these fixtures will be even more impressive. I'm sure, like efficiency and what have you. It's here to stay, and it's only
technology is a beautiful thing. Ham Calls has an interesting question. What causes some acros to brown out while others acros are full of color and nutrients are not the issue? Any thoughts on that, Adam?
Yeah, story of my life, really. Same thing. Just I guess I kind of have like an ethos of my own. Like, if 95% of my coral looks relatively good, and like 5% doesn't look good, as hard as it is to try not to dwell on that, I try to not focus on the ones. I mean, kind of like you can't make them all happy all the time, kind of thing. And I know that's kind of a cop out, but if 95% of the tank is looking good, there's nothing that you might want to change necessarily. It might just be genetics of the coral or something to that effect. And you could try moving it around or fragging it or maybe some, internal things, but I wouldn't consider that a problem with the tank. Obviously, let's say you've got 10 acros and 9 look good and 1 looks crappy.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm so bummed out because, although I do have a backup, but my BC hyperberry colony that I had on one of my frag tanks browned out on me, and that was like the only one that browned out in the whole system. I do have it in my LED tank and it's doing fine and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it was just like 1 out of like 100 corals that just browned out, and I don't really have any explanation.
Yeah. So any idea? No. Like, I mean, nothing led up to, yeah. Well, again, it just seems like that's the story. That's the story of my life there, man. Yeah, and that's the other thing I try to say. I mean, it's kind of shymy, but I try not to get too attached, because these things, man, you look at them wrong and
it sucks.
And that's it.
It's part of it.
But it's good to have backups. I guess that's it's like you said, you got a backup of the hyperberry. I have an entire system dedicated. That's one thing I've kind of done since day one. When I started kind of actually actively propagating, have a separate redundant system for backups, and it has saved many of my own kind of signature pieces. Are here with me still because of the backups I had. And as soon as that thing gets big enough to frag the backup, then I'll make another backup and get that back into maintenance.
That was the reason why.
I can't stress the importance of a backup or a friend maybe to bank them with or something. But
that was the reason why I started the Peninsula Tank system, was to have a backup system. So it's definitely come in handy. Yeah.
Good call. Believe me.
All right, we're gonna try to hit as many questions as possible, Adam, because we only got you for like another 10 minutes. Please. But Sammy31D, what's his opinions on farming under 100% blues? I've been doing for quite a while with great success. Main displays still get some weight purely for fish display. What do you think in terms of?
I'm very curious. In fact, I think I've heard stories of people. I think I heard Jason Fox runs like all actinics, and I'm not sure about that, but this is something I've been wanting to try for a long time. We just haven't done it. But like, even with some of my T5 systems, because I'm still running 65K tropic bulbs and those things. So, everything's yellow up in my shop, but I very much want to try that. I don't have an opinion on it because I haven't done it yet, but I'm very curious myself. So one of these days, and I'm talking about T5, I suppose, again, with LED, I mean, it almost seems like the par is the same. I mean, I don't know how much the spectrum. I guess that's a great experiment. I think I should try. I would actually like to try that. Just run it solid blue, maybe dedicate one tank and maybe a couple of fixtures over, a section to be completely blue, like just as intense, but no whites at all. I would be
you mentioned Jason Fox. He when he was on the show, he said, well, it was either on my show or when Jake Adams went to interview him at his house. I can't remember what it was what I heard this, but he said that he likes the blue spectrum because when he's been diving to collect corals, all the stuff that he collects is like pretty
Right.
much under
I heard
blue
that.
light, you know, way down, you know,
Mhm.
in the on the reef.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it does make sense.
Another thing about Jason Fox, you know, he said a big key to his success and regime in terms of you know, keeping corals is doing large water changes. Let's just remind all the folks in terms of what your philosophy is in terms of water changes.
Yeah, I'm still on board. I mean, you know, the larger the system, the harder they kind of tend to be. You know, so have kind of found out myself. But I know I still try to do at least once a month. Sometimes I get like if everything's looking great, you know, then it seems easier to kind of maybe skip a month. But generally, you know, I have a big 300-gallon kind of big trough, and it's on the second floor, so I don't fill it up all the way. I'm still a little sketched out by that, but I do about 100-gallon, maybe 150-gallon, at least every couple of weeks in my main, and the backup, you know, is kind of more of an experiment tank. I mean, it doesn't get the diligence that the main does, but I'm a firm believer in water changes. I'm definitely not in the camp of like, nah, you don't need that, just add traces or whatever. In fact, and I will say, every time I do a water change, I do tend to notice a little perk, a little, you know, it does seem like a pretty obvious like perk up, you know, whether it was just a like color maybe just gleans a little bit, you know, more, maybe some tip growth is a little bit more, you know, active or something. I would say it's a little more challenging in a larger system, though. You know, I can't. Well, that's even one thing. If I needed to, if I had like a problem, let's say like I thought that there was some. I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, in one of my 6 troughs, there was a smell, kind of a dead snaily smell. You know, and I'm like, you know, sometimes that happens, and it's just a snail, and I shrug it off. You know, wasn't in any tank. And a couple more days go by, and I'm like, okay, the smell's still there. And you know, I don't have as good of inventory of my fish as I should. Well, it was a big dead rabbit fish, kind of tucked in the corner, right by the overflow, so it wasn't really getting into the tank, but you know, kind of. I mean, it was like half rotten. It was bad. You know, it certainly. You know, to answer that one guy's question, that will affect your color, the coloration of your corals. I promise you that. Anyway, so but in a big tank, you know, in my main system, I can't do like a therapeutic like large water change to kind of flush the system like that, and it takes a while to make water too. So even if I want to get like 500 gallons worth of water change, that's like, you know, 3 weeks almost worth of like making water and trying to do that. So like, you know, it's kind of I don't know the word, a double-edged sword having a larger system in that regard. It's a little bit like by comparison, my backup system is only about 300 gallons, and I could do like a 90% water change if I had to. You know, I guess oddly enough, I've been considering maybe splitting my main into two raceways, just, you know, and maybe making lightening the load or something like that, and just kind of seeing how that goes. And actually, you know what I have been thinking of, taking one of my tanks, and this is something my son's been talking about, and separating it from the system completely, putting most of my fish in there, and then having an LPS tank.
Wow.
I don't know. I've never.
There you go.
Like, I don't know.
That could be interesting.
Yeah, well, I tried that years ago, and I had a really good hookup. I tried that years ago, like kind of, you know, my 3rd or 4th year. You know, I had a really good wholesale, and I had all this great stuff. And like maybe people just realized that like I was not nearly as enthusiastic about it. And you know, needless to say, I think I ended up giving most of them away. Like nobody wanted my chalices, whatever. But it's a different environment. That's when torches were like $15, you know, and all those hammers and stuff were just like $10. Different climate now, and I have a huge tank that, and my son was like, "Oh, you got to do that, Dad. You got to do that." So maybe we can figure something out. I mean, I know that there's a market for that, but maybe one of these days you'll see some LPS on the site. One of these days, or even like zoanthids.
Well, all right. So we only got a few more minutes left, man. Let's just quickly talk about corals.
All right,
and anything that's really exciting. That's kind of like a new release you have out there, you know, that you want to talk about. What's
I get so lost up there. Really, I've got so like I think.
What really gets you excited in terms of new stuff?
Well, I think, I mean, there's some really nice oranges that I've gotten that I've been really impressed.
I've seen that on
I've
Instagram, man, like electric orange.
Yeah. I mean, just some stuff that like really glows. I mean, I'm always interested in stuff like that. I mean, thin brancher stuff always I like, but usually for me it's like more oddball. I'm kind of like, I mean, like the tenuous thing has kind of run its course for me. Like, I mean, I completely stopped naming them, you know, years ago. At least, you know, I mean, I'm not. It's kind of running its course for me. But when you see some of these under blue lights, they are quite impressive, I will say. But you know, not on the top of my list of like what I gravitate towards at all. As much as I hate to say it, but
it's a thing. What would you say your top 3 favorite corals are?
Top three of my own, I would probably say my blood bank. Or my cricket spine, they're kind of similar. The bubble bath unicorn, of course. Oh, that's another thing too. I'm kind of done naming. I've
Oh
kind of
yeah.
decided I'm not really naming corals anymore. In fact, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I have a feature on the site that you can actually shut all the names off. I don't know if I had that in
Yes,
place
you
last
did
time.
talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. There's a little button that says no glitz or enter no glitz. I'm kind of like, I mean, it's just getting boring at this point. But so unfortunately, there won't be I'm kind of phasing that out as well. Either way, as long as you got me, like bubble bath unicorn, certainly a long time favorite, and I've always liked that bleeding tree too, just that kind of abro with the green with the super red polyps. I guess that's the
Yeah,
contrast.
yeah, that's one of my favorites from you as
Totally.
well. All right, dude. So I know for those folks that weren't tuned into the beginning of the show, Adam was like bedridden all day, and he has rallied to be on the live stream tonight, and we thank you very much, dude, for doing that,
I appreciate it.
for slugging it
Yeah,
out.
I kind of got that like stage like show must go on thing that kind of billowed through me, but I'm sure I'll be done for here when we unhook.
Well, we'll have plenty more to talk about the next time we have you on the show because
Yeah, let's
it's
do it
always a
again.
pleasure.
Yeah, let's definitely do it again. I'm a little foggy too, so you'll have to bear with me on that. But it's always a pleasure, man. Honestly, I love coming on the show. It's good stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, really appreciate you being on there, Adam. So, all right, folks, that's going to be it for the show tonight. I really want to thank Adam again for being on the live stream. I also want to thank both Bulk Reef Supply and Ecotech Marine for sponsoring the live stream, and I also want to thank all you folks out there for tuning in. Also, big thank you to Paul, who is the moderator, who I think also burned his hand during the live stream. So hopefully, Paul, you're okay. Paul's also the president of the Boston Reefer Society. Please join and support your local reefing clubs. They are so important to this hobby. Finally, I want to let you all know that all episodes of Rappin With ReefBum are available as podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Amazon. My next Rappin With ReefBum live stream will be on Thursday, March 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to have hobbyist Mark Vanderwall on, so that's going to be another great show, so please tune in for that. If you want to check out the full upcoming schedule of guests on reefbum.com, just visit the YouTube section. So until then, be safe, be well, and we will see you next time. Adios.